agitation for at least 2 or 3 or 4 months by all the pundits, and the leader was Gopi Krishna. He used to give these great speeches, with his personality, etc. And I was just glancing at the book. It does cover all of that very well.
Wow. But yeah, he seems like a revolutionary to me from what I have read. I mean,
So he had quite a personality. He was very tall. I met him a couple of times in Delhi and once in Srinagar. And in Delhi, I invited him to IIT Delhi to give a talk at the club. And he was very impressive, very impressive.
actually, he spoke. I was going through one of his interviews, and I was very impressed with his command of his English language, right?
Yeah,
For a
very.
person where he grew up and where he studied. Initially, when I started the, YouTube, I mean, I had to glance up because I'm like, is this guy speaking such
Yeah.
nice English,
Excellent, yeah, excellent command over the English language, and his books are also written very well. But of course, once you see a finished book, especially a Western finished book, there are editors who go through it, and they do it for Western authors as well. So it's not necessarily the way the texts are presented. But I'm sure he wrote it. Because his English was excellent. Yeah, he's gifted, just like his grandson is.
I guess it runs in I think it's genetic, right? I think this artistic gene is genetic. I'm sure you got it from your family. Amrita is very artistic. And then you guys, I guess you get it from your families. It's passed on generation to generation.
I think certainly the height is certainly hereditary for for Rakesh ji. Certainly that.
That is true. Rakesh is tall like his grandfather, absolutely.
Yes. Uh,
And also inclination towards enlightenment and transformation. Certainly, I mean there is certain correlation there. Hi, Aarti from
oh,
Vietnam.
hi.
Yeah.
Long
Hello,
time.
RPG.
Yes.
Hello, namaskar.
Namaskar.
I haven't been here in ages. I'm sorry. I have been very out of it.
Thank
Sorry
you.
about it.
So, Vinita ji, have you been to the new Akshardham temple?
Yes.
Is it awesome?
Yes, I went and saw it just before it was about to open, but now they are going to give us a privately guided tour for the township people. But it's incredible, and every time they showed me the video, I kept asking the team. I said, "How much did it cost?" I asked them this the day of Diwali. How much did it cost? They said 17,000 volunteers. I asked it 3 different times. I got the same answer. They wouldn't tell me how much it cost
The
them,
cost.
but
Right.
it's really beautiful.
Okay.
Incredible, actually.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, my sister, whenever she visits, that's on her list as well to visit. Apparently, it's really beautiful. Um, okay, so Aarti, I think we should get started. I am still on the road and I'll be home like in 5 minutes. But since you are like joining for the first time after reading because your book got delayed,
Yeah.
let's get started. Yeah.
I'll admit I didn't read the 10th chapter. I could only manage from 1 to 9 in bits and pieces. But I mean, one, it's a light read and kind of a refresher from all relatively heavy stuff that we've been reading and analyzing, sub-analyzing. For me, 2, 3 things that stood um, um, Gopi Krishna was one. And more recently, when he started to have these enlightenment and the growing consciousness because of his Kundalini, there was he wasn't expecting any special treatment. In fact, he was quite contrary to that. He would, even though people would come in throngs and throng his place, asking, apparently wondering if he could help them with their problems, he was quite straightforward to say and live a very simple life. Um, I mean, what the easier route would have been to just become a Swami or Mahatma, get people, the usual course. But the book mentions about two two clear choices that he made. One, to consider himself to be any other ordinary person, not boast about what he has seen, what he's been, especially when the poems and the words were coming to him in Persian, Punjabi, Kashmiri, all of those. And another choice to continue on his Grihast part as well, how the book describes Brahmacharya, Grihast, Vanvas, etc. He chose to not desert his family, in his words, stay with them, be with them, because he felt responsible for them as well. Um, well, another was on, and in those times, I'm trying to imagine with all the political chaos that was going around, the shifting of the darbars between Srinagar and Jammu. He still managed to. I'm imagining that for someone, for something like this to happen, you need to have a stable and a calm mind, right? And I'm comparing that with the situation like ours, where we say, oh, because this is stressful, I'm not able to meditate, or I'm not able to work on this, I don't have enough time. But you put, even in that point in time, with so much turmoil going on between the 1947 47 50s, especially those periods, I think he was able to maintain his equanimity through all of this, and yet pursue his spiritual journey. Yes, he did give up on the practices in between, I think, because he was trying to fathom the changes that were happening inside of him, the increased hunger, having not, or focusing more on having the right amount of sleep, all of those things. But even with those external stressful environment, he was able to maintain that. I have no idea how that happens, but at least from the description, it says that he maintained all of this through thick and thin, with the family responsibilities, the job shifts, the bar changes, and all of that. Um, when I was reading about his philanthropic, or not philanthropic, the Samaj Samiti that he opened up, he honestly, at the risk of comparison, he sounded like Raja Ram Mohan Roy of Bengal, because we've read that in our school books. And the only person that I could think of, based my education, was, oh yeah, Raja Ram Mohan Roy Ban Sati, and that's like a iconic figure in my mind. But what I read about him at that point in time, those many years ago, widow remarriage, examples of taking the effort of getting people together. The men in that age, the men in that era, willing to marry widows, so of course would have required a lot of effort from him to talk about these things openly, even at the risk of banishment, perhaps. Uh, but it was a huge revelation to me that someone like that existed at that point in time and did that, and in a very, um, I mean, not in a personal one-to-one basis, just for immediate family members, but for the whole community, and that continued to happen. Besides, yeah, I think these are the three things across the 7 8 chapters that I read that really stood for me. Yeah. The old, I think his mother got married at the age of 12 to someone age. I mean, his father was 22 at that point in time. That was a bit like, took a while to process why that happened, but it was quite natural. And then he himself married early, and his wife is also part of early marriage. How he stood up for his wife as well. When they describe how, when his wife was brought over, and he could hear his mother shout that, oh, my son is like this, and we were promised such so and so bride, and so woman with so many capabilities, all of that. I could literally imagine that in today's scenario, like a mother-in-law trying to do that, even though it wasn't spelled out. But in my, I could hear the Kashmiri words that would come on and on people watching. So that felt a bit funny. But yeah, I mean, still happens sometimes. Maybe not so openly, but in hushed words, yeah. That was a bit funny. um that's it. Have nothing more. It's a like, I mean, it's we're still learning, still getting to know about him, his where he was brought up, about Kashmir. Another thing was, like, you would expect someone to have that level of enlightenment, to have certain rituals, or like Vedic rituals or practices, right? Like someone who would spend 3 hours, 4 hours just praying or visiting temples, walking to this. Somehow that's not mentioned. Maybe in the further chapters we'll get to know, but it just starts with um, a little about Kashmir, and then suddenly him realizing that how the Kundalini had not the right effect or impact on him and his struggle during those brief years, even the time when his daughter got married. And then eventually him realizing what's the right way. So the waterfall sounds suddenly giving way to the birds chirping. That was fun. I'm sure it was a relief. That's it. Has anyone else read the book or initial chapters?
I did. What about you,
Mm.
Samarthi? You also read
I,
them?
the book is here. I have just only got a chance to scan through a few pages, but I will read it before the next meeting. So, in fact, I just opened it an hour ago. I was looking at the 11th chapter. We were talking about that briefly, but uh, but I have read his autobiography, Kundalini, many years ago, and that was a famous book in the 70s. Perhaps it was first published in the 60s. It was a famous book. It was reviewed all over. It had a, I don't know if you've seen it. It had a introduction or foreword, very long foreword by one of the world's most eminent physicists, a German named Count von Weizsäcker. So it was a famous book, and I read that very carefully when I was young.
Interestingly, so I'm here in Vietnam, right? And you have a lot of expat population here. So it's very common to have, energy healing and sound bowl meditation. With due respect to all that happens, I find that a bit too fancy also. And for the holidays, I was thinking, hey, where do I want to go? Should I sign up for something? And there's a 3 or 5 day retreat for Kundalini awakening, and it's open for everyone. Yeah, so I was you remember when we were reading Lalda, then we said that, oh, when you start reading Lalda, things will happen. And when I came across this, I was wondering, is this a sign that maybe I should try Kundalini awakening as well? Now that we are reading,
So
but
who
I'm
is
not sure. It's
who is reading
some
it?
expat. I checked the Facebook profile. I'm just an energy healer. Something. I'm not sure if that's the real Kundalini awakening, but I don't mind giving it a try. I mean, I've got nothing else to do.
Oh,
But
really?
let's
So,
see.
so you're going to sign
I
up?
don't think I don't think can you have Kundalini awakening in 3 days? Like, I'm someone who's done absolutely nothing, just read books. That's it. But it looks like
I
a
don't
couple of
I don't
people said
think so. I don't think so. As far as what we have read, based on what we have read so far, the
it's
answer is
not that
no.
easy.
The
Yeah.
answer is no. But
Yeah.
it's possible that you can instantly awaken it because of like some grace, but that won't happen because you're planned to. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, there are these Vipassana retreats and everything, which I know to be authentic in and around Cambodia, because they're very strict on not carrying much clothing, no phones, no digital. Like, they're all of these things. But this one I realized was just probably just people meditating and some sound bowl meditation. That's it.
So, where are you based, Arti?
I'm in Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh City. So
Okay.
you have a you have a lot of expat population here from Europe, US, UK, everywhere, and they love everything that's got to do with yoga, meditation. I met one person who, in the first meeting, also tells me that my crown chakra is open, but the throat chakra is closed. So you have these kind of conversations, not to ridicule anyone, but yeah, it just feels okay, maybe. So it's very common practice here, and that's why you'll see around the holidays these kind of retreats, 3-4 days retreats coming on. Mhm.
Cool. So on my trip to New York and the Lit Fest, so that was amazing. Terry was there. She was interviewed, and mm, didn't get a lot of time with her on stage. When she was on stage, didn't get a lot of time asking questions and stuff. But I will tell you, when she was speaking, both both Rakesh and I teared up, and like we were both like this. But it's like the passion she has for the like for the guy who she wrote the biography of, it just came through. And she's such an honest person and very down to earth, very simple, funny. um and like first when I saw the book, I was like, oh, why is like a Westerner like writing a book on Kundalini?
Yeah, I wanted to ask the same question.
But turns out that she had traveled to India at some point, had wanted to travel to India at some point, and then she did eventually, and she met with Gopi Krishna, and when he was like in India, and with her team, I guess, or somebody who she was with, and for whatever reason, the research center that was planned to happen, and this you will see in the last chapter, on in the 24th chapter, was supposed to have supposed to be built in, or run in, Uttarakhand, Dehradun. But it really fell through, um, which you'll read, like, no spoilers here. But then the one that is still ongoing is the one in Canada. And the interview, the YouTube video, that's the 4.5 hour interview of Pandit Gopi Krishna, and I love his Kashmiri English accent totally.
Mm.
um, what a simple man, what an awesome guy, and very
Yeah.
hard not to fall in love with such honest person, right? It's so good. Like so And I feel like Terry brought that a little bit of him through her, and I feel like we kind of connected to him through her while she was on stage and she was talking, and she just spoke very and I think there is a video, I mean, a recording of it, but wanted to just mention Terry here a little bit. What an amazing woman, and very unassuming, really, but super super nice. And yeah, it was nice to meet with her, and we chit chatted and had fun. um yeah,
How,
and
how did this? How did she think of writing about him? Like, did she
so,
stay long in India?
so she,
Um,
this is not her only work. She has written multiple books, and everything revolves around spirituality and all that stuff. um but I think, so like I so so I think that she obviously had, like, Gopi Krishna had an impression on her, which is obviously why it happened. Like, we know why it happened. But the fact that she interacted, and she was amazed by, like, the kind of things he was, not only what he was doing, but like he was awakened, and he was like helping the society and all that stuff. And then she went back and she interviewed all his family members and everybody, basically, and they had a lot of recordings as well. And she had a lot of research on it, because she was just basically interested to do it, because she herself was on a journey of enlightenment. In fact, I think, by like when you meet her, it feels like she's just very she's very sorted out. If not, like awakened, or I don't know. She's probably awakened too. So I wouldn't know. Depends on how her poems are.
Well, I'm sorry I missed that particular session, at which Amrita and Rakesh interviewed her, but I got a chance to talk to her at length. Totally agree. Wonderful person, very personable, straightforward, honest. And she was telling us how she was a hippie girl. She was a hippie, and in the 70s, when Gopi Krishna was very famous, so she also was a part of all the followers that Gopi Krishna had gathered around him. And then I think it was quite early that she thought that she would write a book, but eventually, even though she had all the notes, etc., some of the information had to be transcribed, and finally it got written only recently. But very, very nice person, very impressed. And she's got a good style. Whatever little I've read yet, very easy style. And that's
Yeah.
also because she's written so many books. And I don't. I was looking at the book to see if we have the titles of any of her other books here. No, they're not. But I've seen some of those titles. So she's a very good, well-established author, and I think that's where some of these Western authors sort of shine by their dedication over years and years, and so that's what she's done. And if you do get a chance, also read his autobiography, which, as I was telling you, I'd read many years ago. Totally awesome book.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, while reading the book, we came across, like Aarti just mentioned in one of the chapters, she mentions that he had this phase of like words coming through.
Verses coming. Yeah.
But first it happened in Kashmiri. So he had a lot of poems that he is in Kashmiri, and they were translated later on. But I was asking Rakesh ji, can we get our hands on the Kashmiri poems, because I love Kashmiri. And he said, yeah, he will share it with us after we finish reading this. So certainly have got homework to do here before that. But really looking forward to that.
Right. And in his autobiography, he also claims to have come up with verses in other unknown languages.
Yeah,
Yes,
Persian,
Rather
Punjabi.
strange.
isn't that?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
see, I think Ramanujam also like thinks he didn't know what was going to come to him. It came to him. So, and also like he said, he wrote in languages he did not know. I mean,
Yeah.
that's mentioned in the biography as well. Actually, what Terry has written.
Mhm.
She also actually, Terry, interestingly and thankfully, she also takes excerpts from his books and just highlights them, saying that okay, it's a quote from his other books, and then says, oh, he has written this in one of his books, and she has
Mhm.
written. So in a way, we are actually reading multiple books of his as part of this biography. So Meera is here.
Yes, I'm here.
Kya chalan?
Oh, I was wondering who Sonia is.
For some reason, I think her name, I think before marriage, after marriage name, I think that's what it is. No, what is it?
Nothing. I just my nickname is Sonu, so
Ah,
I just came up with that name.
it's
My
like how
mom
we had
had
Yeah.
in
it, so I just came up with
it's like how we had in Dawn. There are like multiple names that you can give yourself. What was it? 108 or what? How many were there?
108 names. Yeah.
All right.
108 names of Ganesha.
Yeah.
You
Okay, Meera, what is your sorry? Go ahead, Subhaji. Okay, never mind. Okay, Meera, what was your experience reading it so far? What's going on? What's on your mind? How far have you come?
my experience. I think it gave me hope when I read when I read lulled it. It was like out of the question. We can't get to
Did
that
you?
level, but this book gave me hope that it's possible. It can happen. It can happen. Yeah, that's all. I love it. I love the book. I love reading it. It's an easy read, as you all said. It's an
Yeah,
easy read.
it is a
And
really.
it just goes from, you can just keep reading it. But I stopped at chapter 10 because I didn't want to confuse myself. So I stopped at chapter 10. But you can keep reading it. I love it.
But
So,
from where we are right now, I think for me, I'm leaning towards maybe I don't want to experience this right now. I
Experience.
the so Kundalini
Subhash,
awakening, of
what you-
course, right? So
Mm.
you hear about this some amazing experience and the thousand petal opening up and nectar falling in, and you wonder like, yeah, I want that. I don't want the next promotion. I want this. But when I read what I've read so far, I'm not too sure. That
Yeah. So,
I'm
Subhash,
okay. I'm okay listening to others' experiences. So it's been more. I don't want to say negative, but it's like it's not every person's. I
it's
don't think
scary.
everyone will have the capacity to manage what he was able to manage, right? Like months of um the toll it took on his health, right? And he was blessed to have a very patient family. Mine won't be. Mine would have like just checked me into some psych ward. So, but from this so far, I'm happy reading it. I'm not experiencing it myself.
Good to know before you do
But
anything.
I think
Read.
we're aware. I think they were not aware of what was happening to them. I think we know more. I'm not saying that I want to go to that level. I'm not saying that. I'm not even sure if I can reach that level. I mean, it definitely gave me hope. I'm not kidding. I'm not lying on that part. But we're more aware. I think we know yoga. We know that. I mean, we're more aware. I don't think he knew what was happening to him.
So, firstly, I think Subhashji will approve of your feeling of not being scared. I think he will be like, don't do it.
No, don't do it. I would see. I tried yoga,
Only
like a
I was
strict
telling
yoga
Aarti.
practice for 3 months. I think it changes you. You just go. Something happens. I think
Yeah.
something
Of-
happens. You're just
It
totally.
does. It
You
does.
just get yes. Something happens. You're like
So,
I felt cut off from everybody. Like emotionally, I started disliking everybody. I'm not kidding.
I
I'm
don't
not
have to.
kidding.
I don't have to do yoga
I
for
mean, this
that.
is
It's
like
quite
a request.
natural.
I mean, I should just, I think, turn off my video. I just started. I shouldn't say hate. Hate is a strong
Very
emotion.
strong word. Hate is a very
Despise.
strong word.
Disliking everybody. I'm like, okay, I think something weird is happening to me.
I
It just these strong emotions came to me. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't just want like shut
क्या
off.
किया आपने? क्या किया?
Yoga. I'm like strict yoga, yaar. मैं सच बोल रही हूँ. I'm not
योगा
kidding.
मतलब क्या? क्या करो? प्राणायाम करते क्या करो?
Like everything, yaar. So just say
Asanas as
yoga,
well as
yaar. Like
pranayam. Yeah, but it does make you calmer. I mean, I would also agree.
नहीं,
For me,
calmer तो
it
चलो
does.
छोड़ो. Calmer is a different state of mind. It didn't make me calm. I started disliking everybody. I'm not kidding. Like it changes you. You just feel cut off from everybody.
You where
I'm
you
not
did
kidding.
you would you say you became impatient with other people?
I
Maybe
did not
that's what.
become no, I did not become impatient. um I could feel strong emotions. Like I could feel strong like अगर मैं अगर मैं angry हूँ, I'll be like anger will go to like level 10. If I'm sad, like I
Wow.
feel stronger emotions.
Like peaks of emotions. No.
Like
Mm,
it was not if I'm happy, I just became bipolar all of a sudden. I'm not kidding. I just
okay.
I just went
Yeah.
up and down and up and just so there are thousands of people who are doing yoga with her. I was telling you, right? My yoga teacher, there are thousands of people. And I'm like, I think I'm the only one going crazy. They seem to be doing okay. They're happy. I think something weird is going. So something weird is going on. So I see these messages coming up to her like I feel these strong emotions. I'm like, okay, sabhi pagal ho rahe hain. Main akele pagal nahi hu. Weird is
So
happening.
so what kind of a program was this? that you
So
did?
this is this is a teacher from India. She does like yoga practice is basically she does
Mhm.
Ashtang yoga practice, and she follows a like it's like पहले beginning class है, and then you do mandala, and then you go for intermediate level, and then you do, so basically you're doing surya namaskar and
So,
different kind of,
asanas,
and then they
various
do
asanas.
Yeah.
different asanas, and then you do pranayam mein, you know, just anulom vilom jo karte hain, and then other things that trata yoga, what is that, when you look into the candle and you
Pratak.
Tratak, exactly. Tratak. नाम ही याद नहीं आ रहा था. Like all these yoga, they do like yog nidra. Like in one of the sessions, they did yog nidra. Like different kind of yo. I was I was different. I'm like, okay, I have to stop this.
But have you changed for the permanently after that? Or have you switched back to your
I
previous
switched
baseline?
back to my when I stopped. I mean, I felt a change in me, and I did not like that change. I felt completely like cut off from everybody. I disliked everything about everybody. I just didn't. It was a strong emotion, so I did not like that feeling. I switched back because मैं थोड़ा slow लिया yoga को. I was like, okay, अब ना मुझे सूर्य नमस्कार करना चाहिए. That's it. थोड़ा प्राणायाम बस काफी है उतना मेरे लिए. But something does happen. Like I think you get like little frustrated. Like I think you become aware of your emotions.
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
I
Do you also feel that I mean sometimes when you hear people talking and you wonder what kind of petty things they are involved with, like how is this
exactly.
I feel that sometimes like come on, this is too small for anyone's attention.
I
And
feel like
And my husband keeps telling me that everybody's moral compass is different. Whatever is morally correct for you, it might not be morally correct for somebody else. So everybody has different moral, that's what I'm told again and again. Scale. Everybody has a different scale.
then
so.
yeah,
I
it
have
just
also had like heightened senses. I think heightened your senses become heightened kind of. I think maybe that's common in yoga. I think
what do
maybe
you mean by that? Can you explain?
like you feel. I mean, your senses become heightened as in like you, whatever you perceive, or even hearing. My hearing became very strong. My sense of like smell became very strong. I
I
could.
think my creative side came out. I can totally agree with that.
Hmm.
I can totally agree with that. I will
Oh,
show you something. I'm not an artist. I'm not an artist, but I will show you something.
I'm sure by next week verses will also start flowing in
लगता
and
है
we'll
मुझे
hear a poem from
मुझे
her.
लगता है मुझे योगा क्लास ज्वाइन करनी चाहिए फटाफट.
So but for sure it has an effect, like that I'll agree.
Oh, nice.
Oh wow.
Oh, these are good. That's
Wow.
nice. Triptych. That's a
What
triptych,
do you
right?
mean you're not an artist? Like you did this for the first time?
She's
We can't
muted.
hear you. She's muted. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. So this is my first time. I have never painted. I have never. I mean, I'm pathetic.
Oh,
I'm pathetic.
It's pretty good as a composition.
yeah.
It's
Right?
pretty
So
good.
this happened when I was doing yoga.
Wow,
And
that's impressive.
Okay.
Wow.
so this is, I totally agree with that artist, like creative side coming out. I can totally agree with that. But other than that, I freaked out. Freaked out.
I I had two reactions to this book so far compared to most of you. I didn't Kundalini part. I did, since I'm not that as into meditation and stuff like you guys are. You are much more evolved people. So for a person like me who hasn't done any meditation or gone to any retreats or done anything except I sit and I'm a very ritualistic person, and I do believe in going to the temples and following the rituals and sitting there and closing my eyes and believe in doing good and helping people. That's it. Beyond that, I haven't done any of these things. So just opening the book and reading it as a person who has no clue about Kundalini or yoga and all those asanas they are talking about, I thought that this guy was pretty impressive. He was quite woke for his generation. That is the part which I liked. right from the
Yeah.
beginning, in the first few chapters, where he stands up for a woman he has not even met, knowing that if he doesn't marry her, how will it look, because his mother is creating a scene in the other room. It showed that he's a very compassionate human being from the beginning. And then you go on to see that the desire for justice in him is so great, that he wants to help women, and then he wants to help. And then the best part, which really knocked me, was that he started a shelter for abused women before the world even started a shelter,
Yeah.
right? I mean, he did it in
Yeah.
what, 1950s? And 1971 was the first
Early
time in
40s,
UK
yeah.
there was a shelter for abused women. So, I mean, this
Yeah.
guy was ahead of his times, irrespective of Kundalini, no Kundalini. And
And I think, to your point, the example that you don't need fancy degrees, and what we often call as education to be more progressive and forward looking. He wasn't that. He wasn't the research scientist, or he didn't make fancy discoveries, but he was, I because of his sense of awareness, heightened awareness, of course, knowing what's right, what's wrong. I think it also gave him strength to be sort of an outlier, whether it was not taking bribes in a government job, or it was all pervasive. Even when he was moved from, I don't know from, but was moved to the education department because of that, because you won't get, no one pays bribes to get their kids educated. So, he, I think that gave him the strength to bear all of this. Hebe.
But
Sorry, you were
no
saying.
matter
Mm.
as
and no matter
someone,
how much he rose in his spirituality and people started following him, he always,
Treated
I mean,
himself.
it was nice. I know his family sacrificed for him, and he keeps saying it again and again. If not for his wife Babi, he wouldn't have
He
been there.
wants
If
it.
not for his kids, he wouldn't have done this. But every time he was this close to getting away from all this, right, just to walk away,
Yeah.
always on that, but he always, for his family's sake. That shows that he must have loved his family quite a lot too, right? And not being called a guru and having followers, that is another thing
Yeah.
which made me think of him. He never called himself a guru, nor let other people think that he could do all these supernatural things like the other gurus of other times, or have done or not done. I'm not going to say anything about that, because we all have different faiths and feelings. But yes, that is what I liked about him so far. I mean, he was all out there. And then what about all those languages? German. Would somebody be able to tell me about that? That is the point where I need to know. I mean, how can somebody, okay, Kashmiri, Urdu, Hindi, maybe English also I can
Persian.
understand.
Yeah.
But then Punjabi, then Persian, then German, then Sanskrit, then Arabic. I mean, how does that happen? I mean, is there a sign? I did look up neurologically. Yes, sometimes your accent becomes different, right? I looked it up that if you get a right, but this is totally, you can't be speaking a different language. Not only speaking, then writing it in verse and in poetry. That's totally bizarre. I mean, what is the
It did
logical
sound
explanation?
bizarre. It did sound bizarre.
Um,
But
I
like,
have.
when he started writing verses in German, how did he know this is German? Like, it's just, it's just a random language. Like, for him, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Somebody might have confirmed it was German when he wrote it, after he wrote it, I guess. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah,
So
something.
there's if you read the autobiography of a yogi, and this was when Swami Vivekananda had to first time go to America, and someone from Sirampur in West Bengal, not the top of his class, but having to address thousands of Americans in a language not so proficient in. There's a similar thing that he felt that there was someone who was guiding him on the flow, what to say and how to frame it. And his guru, then I think Sri Yukteswarji, had predict. I mean, he had told him in advance that this is something he was meant to do, that was his destiny. Why his guru was the one who insisted that he complete his education, because some many years later you will have to go to America, and apparently that was
That's
something which would make him more credible, and then he'll address these group of people, etc. in my mind it's like, oh, this is magical, right? But I'm very lame in terms, like this is magic, how else does that happen? No one, no such voice came to me when I was taking my exams. But I feel this what I've come to believe, that these things happen to people. So when I was reading and when you were describing this as well, like, I felt the same thing. Like, how does this happen? How do they know? How is it just flowing through them? But maybe these things happen to those people.
I guess because I personally am a very staunch believer of Shirdi Sai Baba. So I, for
I
one,
know.
I'm not going to look at the scientific side of it. Then I'm a
Yeah,
total believer. So then, yes, then he could have done anything, and I'm sure he had all those
exactly.
supernatural powers to heal people, but he never did it or use it because he was not. That was not his intention, or he
They
didn't want to.
use,
Yes.
yeah, they use all those with a sense of consciousness. So there are instances where they have healed people, but it's not that every other person with a problem comes in and you try to do some kind of a magic or whatever. But those are specific instances, and that's what is with Pandit Gopi Krishna as well. He didn't abuse any of that to have an exalted position in society, or have people, get people reverence just because I have certain superpowers, etc. That's what made them extraordinary, ordinary people.
So to to answer this question would be this,
Mm.
like how would it come to him out of nowhere is the way e-dimensionality came to Subhashji.
No, okay.
But
Okay.
does that happen really?
Yeah, well, without talking about e-dimensionality, let me talk about Gopi Krishna ji, right?
Mm.
First, since I've met him, um, even before he had become successful, one can imagine, maybe he was a young boy, his personality was such, he had such stage on him. And it must have been there even when he had not gone through, adulthood and so on. So uh, he had a way of walking and projecting himself. And that must have been a part of him right from the beginning. And so he must have known even before his Kundalini experience that he was a leader. This is, young people know it. Uh, Young people or beautiful people, they know it somehow in them, right? That this is who they are. Now, that's one. Second thing, Vinita ji, about German and so on. I'm also a hardcore scientist, as you know. What I do is I leave out these parts altogether for judgment. Believe or no believe, I'm not going to question it, or I'm not going to even think about it, because obviously it could not have been possible. But it's in the book, or it's in Gopi Krishna ji's autobiography as well. So, but I don't sort of think about it. Now, e-dimensionality. Now, that is something that you can explain. E-dimensionality, or you mentioned 108 names. Who's talked about 108 names?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Ganesha's
it's
108
in the
name.
book,
Dawn.
Rakeshji's book, Dawn.
Dawn, 108 names. And as you know the background to 108 names, all of you, don't you? Or you don't?
There are 108 beads in a mala for
Yeah,
chanting.
you know what's the basis.
And
Okay.
the
Okay.
sun and the moon, all that distance.
Yeah,
Ah, the
yeah, yeah.
distance and the,
Okay.
oh, okay,
Okay,
okay.
yeah, yeah. And the background to that is I was sitting in my living room. This is 1993 October, and it's all true. It's a true story. And I was reading the New Yorker magazine, an essay by John Updike on the size of the sun and the moon, and suddenly it flashed to me that it had something to do with the Rig Veda. And that's when I realized, and I studied, I wrote books on it and many, many articles, where I discovered that the Vedic rishis knew that the sun and the moon are each 108 times their respective diameter away from the earth. And the modern astronomy also tells us that the diameter of the sun is 108 times the diameter of the earth. And now you have 108 beats in the Japamala because you're making a symbolic journey from earth, which is your body, to the inner sun, who is your Ishtadevata, Shiva or Krishna or
Mm.
whatever else. So you're making a symbolic journey, one round. So now it came from nowhere. But now That is one thing. Now, of course, and this is something that in Tantra, and Amrita, I must tell you, I just finished my book yesterday, and I've sent it to my publisher. It should be out in the next 2 or 3 months
Oh,
on Kashmir.
awesome.
On Kashmir, it's called Whispers from the Past: Art and Wisdom of Kashmir. Okay, now
Wow.
Kashmir was,
Awesome. Looking
yeah,
forward. That's going to be 2024, right? July?
2024. Uh, the the Kashmir was the place where many of these sciences were born, spiritual sciences were born, including Tantra. Tantra. You look at Kashmir Shaivism, it's Tantra because Shiva is within you, Shivoham, right? Or you do Sri Vidya, and I'll tell you why I'm mentioning all this. Sri Vidya, have you seen the Sri Vidya picture? Sri Vidya has all these triangles, nine
Yeah,
triangles. Yeah,
yeah,
and there is
yeah.
a bindu in the middle, and then there
Mm,
is this mandala, right? The
mm.
bindu in the middle. The triangles represent reality, the cosmos, either the outer cosmos or us. There is we have a structure to our mind, which is our inner cosmos, and that is the domain of the Devi, of the goddess. The, all of us is the goddess, and within the the domain of goddess is that bindu, who is Shiva. So when you look for Shiva, you can't find it. The only thing that you find is the goddess. That's why you worship the goddess. In Kashmir also, you worship the goddess, right? So in other words, why am I saying this all? If that 108 idea came to me, or e-dimensionality, what that you can always explain it away as a coincidence, that there's no way you can then say, hey, there is something mysterious that happened, because ultimately whatever happens can be explained as some kind of a natural phenomenon, or maybe a coincidence, or there's just an epiphany, there's a flash, and in that flash the idea comes to you. Well, if optimality in logic is e-dimensional, whole nature is optimal, so space should be e-dimensional, right? So it's a simple leap if you look at it from out in, right? But you could also say that somehow, um, some inner door open, or you could then also say that, well, if the outer space or outer universe is optimal with e-dimensionality, should be the genetic code, and so it's so simple thing. And then if you have faith in yourself, you can go ahead and then sort that out. So the point that I'm trying to make is that what can appear as mysterious, perhaps on recounting, can also be explained as coincidence. And with the Western gaze, you would say, Shruti ji, namaskar. You would say that it's a coincidence, or you could say that Ramanujan would wake up and you would say, my family deity, goddess Namagiri dictates those formulas to
Mm.
him, and he writes them down, and they're amazing. But you could also say, well, maybe an intuition. That's what happens in intuition also, and
Yes.
maybe there's nothing mysterious. You see that?
Yeah,
It
Yes.
depends
yeah.
upon how you're looking at it. As a
So,
Westerner, you would say, okay, you get a flash, and flash means, well, you suddenly get an idea. You don't
Yeah.
know where ideas
Eureka
come from.
moment
Nobody
kind.
knows that, right?
Mm.
It's like Elias, the famous story of Elias Howe,
Mm.
uh, who was the first person in the beginning of the Industrial Revolution in the world, which changed the world. 1744 in the US, and people were trying to invent the sewing machine, and many people were trying. He was an inventor, and he had a trance. In that trance, he saw that he had been bound, and he was going to be taken by cannibals, and they're going to take him into a cauldron and boil him and eat him. And as he was being taken in his trance or in his dream, he looked back and he saw that there were these Indians meaning, American Indians, the cannibals, and they had these lances, and the front of the lance was an eye, open eye. And at that moment, he woke up. He realized he needed a needle with an
True.
open eye to pull the cloth, and that changed the world. In fact, in some ways, you can say that was the greatest invention of all time. Because before that, people had to spend so much of time darning, knitting, and this and that, and he changed it. So now you could also say, well, he just got an idea. It was a simple idea, and there's nothing mysterious. Or you could say it's mysterious, and the goddess speaks to you, right?
Yeah.
Or God speaks to you, or Krishna speaks to you. So it depends upon what your perspective is. Now, I personally feel I can tell you about my own work in the last 2 years. I've written, I don't know, 15, 20 papers on different fields, and I wrote them so quickly because now, of course, one can always explain, hey, Subhash Kak is very experienced. He can very quickly do literature survey, for example, on the genetic code, and maybe a day, and he can pull it all together because of his experience. And that would all be true. But on the other hand, I wrote these papers on fields that I knew nothing about. I knew nothing about genetic code. I wrote a paper on chromatin, which is where the DNA is in the cell, in the middle of the cell. It's compressed in the middle
Mm.
of the cell. I didn't even know the meaning of the word chromatin. I wrote that paper, and it's almost gone through the review. Um, so one could then also say, well, so, okay, you had the idea about the genetic code. Then I did the next obvious thing, which is look at where is the genetic information stored. It's stored in the chromatin in the middle of the cell. And because of my experience and maybe judgment, I was able to put it all together. And both would be right. But maybe from my own perspective, because I'm also just like all of us, I get distracted. Sometimes I go to my office the whole day. I'm not able to do anything. I'm going from one web page to another, like most of us do. There's so many distracting
Yeah.
things out there. But then suddenly you are able to put it all together. And possibly, if you were a believer, you would say, "Yeah, well, the goddess is dictating to you." Literally, you could say that. But you could also say that really there's no mystery in it. And it's all because you applied and you were open, and maybe you have of course, my wife says my daughter says I'm ADD. But on the other hand, when I was growing up and as a kid, and my mother loved me for this, I had tremendous concentration. Right, I could. So who knows what's the truth? So it's how you bring your focus on something that you're able to do it. Or what happened was a month ago, I wrote to this publisher in Delhi. I said, I want to. I've almost done this book on Kashmir, but I really hadn't done it. So last 4 weeks, then I pulled it all through, and I was just looking at my email to him. I had said 30th of November, and I actually mailed it to him on 29th. I had no idea. So how did it come together? I don't know.
We'll find out next year.
Huh?
I said we'll find out how it came along.
You mean how good it is? We'll find that out. In fact,
I'm kidding, but this is wonderful. It's amazing, and thanks for sharing all that. And what came to my mind is a book, Thinking Fast and Slow. I think
Think fast, think slow. Yeah.
Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. I think I've
Mhm.
read it long
Yeah.
time ago, audiobook. So in that also it says that you can't say you're intuitive and make any decision based on your intuition. It has to be something that over time you would have gathered multiple data points, and then intuition comes out of it. And for some it seems like magic, and for some it's just like yeah, it's obvious. I mean, that's the next
absolutely.
obvious thing to do.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. But it's like artists. Okay, you look at Picasso or anybody else. Now, in retrospect, you could say, well, maybe his imagination was free and he put it all together. He was fighting the orthodoxy at his point, at that point in time in European art. So he made, or Sonia, she made her painting frustrating. So based on whatever knowledge of painting you have,
Yeah.
you got this
Her boys might be like, she might have seen, I mean, obviously there's like exposure to arts, but I
Right.
think what she's saying is that she was never an artist and she did yoga and
True.
suddenly she's actually,
True.
Shruti, you didn't see it, but hi, welcome and good morning.
Good morning.
She's
Thank
in,
you. Thank you for being patient with my late morning.
oh, thanks for joining. I'm glad that
Oh, are you in India right now?
Yeah, I'm in Jammu, and
Oh,
my grandmother has hijacked my Gopi Krishna book, so I don't have it since last night.
I see.
And she's been reading it, and my grandfather was telling me this story of how as an 8-year-old boy he used to hold like a danda and stand near the lecturer hall where Gopi Krishna was giving lectures. So
Ah,
I
how
was just
sweet.
enjoying, like,
Wow.
I was taking advantage of being with them to hear stories from them too yesterday. So that's
wow,
just
do share more
Yeah.
and tell us about what you have read so far. In fact, we've missed most of you. I mean, more we have missed you for, for most of the month. Getting ahead of my words.
so. I think I really was impressed by all the social reforms and in actions, that he was taking alongside his own personal journey. And like, I was hearing from my grandfather, the first thing I heard from him, he was like, he was a social reformer, he did so much for women. So it's like in his mind after so many years, right? Like, that's what I think I see as a very strong facet of his work and personality. And everything, my grandfather was like naming all these points that I was like, it's in the book, it's in the book, it's in the book. So I think and he did say that he wasn't very politically inclined. His focus was all on his social work, again reinforced in the book. So all those chapters that we just read, on the widow remarriage, on the reduction of dowry, on the facilitation of finding people their life partners, kind of a thing. So I think that's something that very much happens when, like, what the message is from the book that I'm taking away is, um, you don't need any other signs or symptoms. It's as long as you are doing something for the good of the people around you. That's kind of like the biggest
Hmm.
sign of being awakened, kind of a thing. And the message I think that he is trying to send out is, everyone is going through that journey, and in some shape and form, some people might be feeling more strongly of based on what actions they are taking to awaken the energy in them versus others, but everybody is going through it,
Right.
voluntarily or involuntarily. I think that's what I'm starting to pick up. Yeah.
Yeah, and if one way to look at this whole question, which came up earlier on, how much is inherited? Like Rakesh ji's height from his grandfather, right? I think there is something very special about Kashmir. In my book, I do quote all of this. For example, Abhinav Gupta says that Kashmir is a place where almost everybody is a scholar, including soldiers and women and everybody. Kashmir has had this amazing history. And as we know, we inherit them not only through our genes, but also through our epigenome. Um, right? Everybody knows about the epigenome.
Yeah.
So
I
we
think in your paper, The Wonder of Kashmir, you also mentioned how the geography or the weather, etc., also predisposes us to contemplation in this. I think I remember reading that in
Oh,
in
that
that.
The Kashmir, the
The,
wonder
wo-
that was
the
Kashmir,
wonder
right?
that was
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But that was just a kind of a, things that all writers do. That you throw that does not necessarily mean that is responsible, because there are lots of other people who live in Kashmir who are pretty nasty, right? So it's not. so that was just one of those random
Okay.
things. But
Oh,
personally, having now read this and this book, and I'll share a manuscript or two copies with you guys, before it gets published. But I think this whole conception that arose in Kashmir, which is what Gopi Krishna ji also talks um, about through inner search, discover the incredible capacities and gifts that each one of us possesses. And that's the domain, of course, of the goddess. So in other words, now I was talking earlier on as a outsider, as a Westerner view, that it's all a coincidence. But then if you take the in the tradition view, then indeed all this is under your control. You can, through your sadhana, through worship of the goddess who's within you, the god. Has any of you read a book called Yoga Vasisht?
Not yet.
Okay, I have a chapter on that, but it's freely available on the internet. It's the greatest storybook ever written. Nothing in the world like it, and I'm very knowledgeable about fiction from all over the world. And this was written, I don't know, 1500 years ago. It's also considered the greatest book of Vedanta. And so some people look at it as, in the same tradition as the Bhagavad Gita and so on. But it's all of that is in terms of stories. So, for example, one of the stories that I summarized in my book it's called The Story of Leela, Lila, Leela. You use those diacritic marks to show long vowels, Leela. So the story is that she's married to a king, and but aren't we run out of time, Amrita? Are we out of time?
Well,
Next week.
Complete the story.
Next
I
week.
We can listen to that.
you can listen to the story, but it's only morning for Shruti, so we have all day.
So for Shruti, it's the entire day, right?
We have all day. But I think you can finish your story.
Okay, and you can Google it, and you should read it. It's amazing. It's an incredible story. And there are many stories. I just picked that one. And of course, you also have the Katha Sarit Saga from Kashmir, which is huge stories. Then you also have Panchatantra is also from Kashmir, right? So these are great storybooks. Maybe the source of the storybooks around the world, or stories around the world. So in this story, Leela and her husband, they love each other. And the thought comes to Leela, what happens that if I die first, then I'll know what my reality is. But what happens if my husband dies? So she does sadhana of Saraswati, and she says, give me a boon that even if my husband were to die, he'll still be in the palace. So I could still communicate with him. And then the second boon she says is that if I ever want to call you, you will appear. And then her husband dies. And then she calls Saraswati, and she asks Saraswati, where's my husband? And then Saraswati says, okay, I'll take you where your husband is. He's already born again. And just even though only a week has passed, time is not uniform all across reality. So he's already married again. He's got children. He's again a great king, etc., etc. And all kinds of amazing things happen. I will just stop here. And I will.
It just
Cliffhanger.
No, seriously.
It's a cliffhanger now.
Huh?
It's a cliffhanger now. Part 3 ka wait karo.
Well, so where do these impressions come in from? Because if there is one Shiva and we are vibrations in that Shiva, each one of us, can we, what we want and try and what we are into, can that also create vibrations which have effects all around reality? Now you can talk about it in a very abstract way, or you can do it in terms of stories, and that's where she finds out that okay, she is already, or he's already there, and then she finds out that what he's married to is another Leela, and there is a reflection. When you look into the mirror, Amrita, you look into the mirror, you'll see another Amrita. Can you and the reflection in the mirror live at the same time? We exist at the same
Now
time.
I'd be very scared to see the mirror.
Oh God.
So anyway, incredible stuff. If you are into fiction and deepest wisdom, because all over India, not just in Kashmir, all
It's
over India.
fantasy. It's fantasy.
Yeah, it's fan. You can also look at it as fantasy, but it all hangs together from the perspective of that there is one single reality who is, you can either call it the sea of consciousness, or you can call it Shiva or whatever. Then it all hangs together. I'm not saying what is and what isn't. One should never. That is up to each of our minds, right? Because there are two sides to us, and that's what Shaivism says, or even Vedanta says. One is the lamp of consciousness. When sometimes you wake up and you don't remember your name, but you still are conscious. That's where that lamp is still working. The other is your autobiography, which is your personal life, which is governed by rules of logic and mind and so on, emotion and so on. So that is the world of mind and the world of consciousness. It's that relationship which constitutes the different aspects of our life journey.
Lovely, lovely. I feel like I cannot wait for the book that you've written. Now I want to know what you've written in it. Whether it's anything spiritual or whether there is more like Kashmir, whether there's politics. Now I'm just wondering what it's going to be.
I'll send you one copy, the manuscript right now, just for you to take a look at.
Okay.
Yeah, there is. It's for the general public. It's for everybody.
Okay, cool. Thank you. That's really nice.
Sure.
Coming back to Shruti, you were saying that it just struck me actually because I on my trip to the East Coast also went to Pennsylvania, and I met Shivani Ren. I don't know. She's part of the book club actually. Shivani Rena, who probably joined. She's one of the first people who joined the book club. Anyways, so her father and mother were there, and then her father was like, okay, like, so what's happening, blah blah, and we started talking about Lal Ded, and then suddenly I'm like, oh, we're reading Gopi Krishna now. Oh, I know Gopi Krishna. We used to sit with her. And then I was like, okay, fine. And then he tells me, and again, like whatever is written in the book about that, he used to eat a lot of meat. He's like, so anan mats od kilo, so puro mats od kilo we. It's like,
Chalo, Toto's non-vegetarian mein, but chalo janga.
The sari butter is non-vegetarian.
Today I was thinking about this, that people say don't eat meat, you can't be awakened and all that, which is certainly not true, obviously here. But I think also Lal Ded has mentioned it in some in places, right?
Yeah.
However, when you are like, let's say Lakshman Ju, when he's talking about it, he's saying you should not eat meat and stuff. Now I'm going to interpret it in my way, and I did that this morning. And I was like, why shouldn't one eat meat? And what is the basis of that, right? People think, or it's a general notion, that when you eat meat, it's because you find it tastier, or it's like a desire that you have for meat, right? I think in Kashmir, meat was so easily available, or was part of our everyday life, that it had become part of our identity, or the way our staple was. So it's like our basics, right? It wasn't something that we were necessarily craving because it was tastier. It was just something that we grew up with. So it's our ground zero.
It's like how Bengalis say fish is like a vegetable. It's like
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but I think the reason why people ate meat in Kashmir is because Kashmir is cold. There were no vegetables in winter.
Yeah.
So in all cold countries, people eat meat.
Yeah.
And there's no moral judgment there. I think people can eat whatever they want and still advance. Yeah.
sustenance of the body, which is also important from a spiritual point of view. Sustenance, proper sustenance of the body.
Right.
And I think it's like, they say, right, you can carry on your own mundane life and still be spiritual. It's like
Correct.
duality.
You don't have to be like a sannyasi and leave everything and hold. On that point, I have to come back to, actually came back to me. I wanted to make a point on Arti's comment, but to finish this part, also that he used to eat a lot of meat. It's probably also I mean, it was certainly because of whatever he was expending during
Yeah.
this yoga
Yeah.
process. Uh, but yeah, like, to close on what I have concluded is that meat was only meat is only like considered bad is because it might be something like uh,
I mean, if it's for a glutton, yeah, bad. But if you have it as for sustaining yourself,
yeah.
yeah, do what you do.
And why meat for him was because it was what he knew. It was what would
Yeah,
bring him home. He said,
full.
when you want to be home, you want to eat home food, and that was home for him, and that's it. I think that's where I understand that. And coming back to, oh, now I'm going to forget this again. Yes, um,
Mm-hmm.
Aarti brought up, like, I'm very scared. There's no family to take care of me if something happens. And this was my question, and now I haven't figured an answer to this yet. But it's probably necessary that when you are going on a journey of a spiritual kind, you have to have somebody around you, and you should not do it by yourself. So I think that
Why do you say that?
because of what we are reading.
Something. Okay.
Oh,
If something happens.
I can answer that. You know,
Um,
when you go on such a journey, especially Tantra, especially Kundalini, there are two kinds of journeys. One is outside Bhakti, like Vinita is talking about. And that is standard, you are within a certain boundaries. But when you go within, like Kundalini, you are going to be questioning yourself, questioning everything that you were told was who you were. So that is sort of scary. So you need some kind of an
yeah.
anchor of a wise person, or anchor of somebody, or anchor of experience, or whatever. You need some anchor. Otherwise, you could do various things. And to come back and to connect it up to Gopi Krishna ji's eating a lot of mutts, right? Yeah, the body also has vasanas. In fact, this is according to Vedanta. If you read which Upanishad, Mandukya Upanishad, for example, body also has its own vasanas. Their body and mind, man, buddhi, ahankar, right? And the body. So unless unless you are able to um, unless you're able to get total mastery over yourself, your body will also push you into doing things. Do you see that? And nobody, not even Gopi Krishna ji, I'm quite sure, uh, obtains so much of mastery. I mean, you do, but we always are within. There's a dance between your higher sense and your body sense. You always come
To
back.
contain that.
Yeah, so you can do both. Um, and But now the reason why people say vegetarianism, especially if you're in the plains of India, is because vegetables and food is, grains
Available.
are easily available. And then the question of karuna or compassion comes in. Why do you have to kill an animal? Really, an animal is no different from you. And therefore, if you're a vegetarian, that's a good thing. But if you live in Leh, Ladakh, or in Kashmir in winter without modern transportation, if you didn't eat meat, you could die. Now, in Ladakh, where I spent 2 years of my childhood, I learned, because people were Buddhists, and it's harsher than Kashmir. What they would do is they would take these buffaloes or horses, and they would cut the vein so that the horse would die, but they won't say that I've killed it. They would say, okay, it's a kind of an injury. You play games with yourself, and then you eat the meat, right? You'd say, well, it's a freshly dead horse, and so I ate its meat. But these are all games, and there is in the Vedas there is a answer to all of this. Any ideology that you follow to the letter will lead you ultimately to a space of paradox and confusion. Any ideology, or you're a Jain, you say, I'm not going to wear any clothes. I mean, what are you trying to prove? You see that? So any ideology, you must be moderate. as Kathopanishad says. The correct path is the middle path, razor's edge, be somewhere in the middle. So as far as now, I don't eat meat. I stopped eating meat 30 years ago, and my mother was shocked. She says, "It's kya goi? Why aren't you eating meat?" But
That's what I wanted to ask you, actually. That was the next question. Do you?
yeah, I stopped 30 years ago. Now, um, but here, there's no reason for me to, and I don't miss it anymore. I don't miss it at
Yeah.
all. I don't miss it at all. And now I also realize that the real swad that you have is from the masalas. It's probably the meat doesn't have any taste. It's the way you put these
Rogan
masalas
Josh
together.
Russ has more taste than Rogan Josh itself.
Yeah, precisely. Precisely.
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, of course, all of our Kashmiri stuff has to end with food or discussions, because like we know we can't. Rogan Josh is where it is at.
But if you're talking about spirituality in inner self,
मुझे
Rogan Josh has to come up.
Has to come up.
मुझे ना उनके अंकल थे तो कश्मीर में ऐसे बोलते हैं ना कि हम लोग इष्ट माता इकुन इष्ट रोगना इकुन इष्ट शारिका कुन सो तुम्हारा इष्ट देवता है। तो उनको पूछते थे तो ही कोर कुंचो जैसे बिचुस काटस को
But I must say one thing. You have the Kashmiri Pandits, and then you have the Tamilian Brahmins. The Tamilians kept on with their Sanskrit, and they conquered the world. We,
Yeah.
at some point, decided to focus on Rogan Josh, and we haven't done as well as the Tamilians, right? Isn't that true?
So,
Yeah.
so
I mean, we had different circumstances, but yeah.
so it
No,
was
no. I think that was a conscious decision. We could have still, when I came to Oklahoma, most of the people who live here are Tamils. Every Saturday or Sunday, they have their Vishnu Sahasranamam, right? And that's how they keep their connection. And of course, they also have fun. They chat, they this or that. But this is how their children learn Sanskrit, not even through formal education.
Hmm.
so
Subhaji, you said that. I was just talking to my husband about that. I was just like, I would not be just 2 hours back. I was telling him like how South Indians put in so much effort to keep their culture alive, and we're thinking we need to drop our these things. We just don't want to continue it. South Indians continue it. They're so proud of their culture. They teach their children, like their children are so well read in all these scriptures जो भी हमारे हैं like जैसे विष्णु
Kashmiri, and
सहस्त्रनाम
जैसे Shringeri hai, they follow, first of all, the Saraswats in the south say they are from Kashmir, and they read even Raman Maharshi, he read the Yoga Vasishta. All of these books, your Kashmiri books hai. I can't tell you कि जो South India के पंडित हैं, how moved they are when they talk of Kashmir, because they really look at Kashmir as the place from where all this knowledge came from. They really mean.
one thing is for sure, Kashmir had everything and everybody came there and everything. Who did not get there were the media people. Because nobody covers it. Covered what happened to it. So Aarti, I had to mute you because there is some like echo happening. But coming down to moderation, and this again, I had quoted this Bach on my East Coast trip because autumn was happening and people were fasting, and then there was a thing about ha behak pati sikhat kinna. So my answer was kyan kyan karan kunno vatak na kyan gatsak ahankari. Somi khe mile somi asak. Somi
that is one of my favorite parts.
somi kyan mutra nahi bar nahi tari. So it's on moderation really. What's
Beautiful, actually, beautiful. Ahankar, if you say कि मैंने नहीं किया, absolutely middle. This is a beautiful one. मैंने इसके बारे में ध्यान नहीं दिया था. Beautiful.
yeah. It's about like if you fast, you get an ego. कि हाँ मैंने तो fast किया. So
Okay,
anyway.
Shruti, one question. Since you are in Jammu, how does Jammu look? Is it beautiful or nice? What's your experience?
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I would say this time I was very impressed with how quaint and peaceful the small lanes inside out away from the main road are. Even back when I was here during Diwali, like the day after Diwali, I was walking around and there was no debris on the roads. Like you're used to all that firecracker debris in Mumbai and Pune and Delhi and those places, but nothing on the roads here. So I really enjoyed my trip this time here. Also had family with me on my Diwali trip, so it really felt like home for a change, where we didn't have any agenda of going to someone's home or going to some wedding or something. So it was just quiet family time. It was good, very nice. One thing random that I noticed was there were some people. I walked to the street one day to get some groceries, and there was some jalouse happening right outside the grocery store. People were burning a fire, and they were saying something like terrorists, like hi, hi, or something. I don't remember the exact slogan, but they were like, some jalouse or the other is like usually going on the main road. Random. Even the last year when I was here, there was some car going, like some tempo or something was going on, and नारे निकल रहे थे उसके speaker में से, some julus was going on. So
I mean,
that's
what's
not,
happening in Kashmir right now is crazy with what's happening in the NIT Srinagar and all that stuff, right? With after India lost in the World Cup, and it's crazy. I mean, I think I think both sides are like. I mean, you can see two sides. That's one problem here. And but I think in this case, and what we were listening to was that it seems like now it's not only that we are receiving, we are also giving back. It seems like it. So they had to shut down the university, by the way. So
They
anyway,
sent everybody home.
yeah, they sent कोई एग्जाम नहीं, कोई मत पढ़ो, घर जाओ सब, बाय. बहुत हो गया, खाओ रोगन जोश घर पे, सब ठीक हो जाओगे. Anyway, so yeah, good session, guys. It's 1.5 hours. So next, what do we want to read? Which chapters do we want to read? I feel like we could do more than 2. It's like easy stuff.
Yeah, it's an easy read, I think.
very readable. Yeah.
Okay. So whoever has the book in front of you, because I'm very cold, I'm not getting out of my bed right
Okay, here.
now. So let's do 11, 12, 13. Is it like 40 pages maybe? I think 40 pages is doable.
Sure.
And
Yeah,
then,
because it's so very easy written, so nicely
Yeah.
written. Yeah.
that's why I was like, if you guys want to just read more of it and just come back and discuss whatever you've read, but I think we should just synchronize. So how many chapters do we have? We have 24, right? Yeah, I mean, I think there is Christmas. I hope you guys are going to come. I mean, meet every Friday here on. I don't want to like miss anything anymore. But
Okay, chapter 11 starts on page 120 and it ends in 300. So chapter 16 starts at 181. So you have 60 pages from chapter 11 to end of chapter 15. Yeah, 60 pages is nothing. This can be read, actually the whole book can be read in a day.
you don't know us. We took 7 months to read. First of all, we didn't read Raj Tarangini. Instead of that, we read your page like paper, which was amazing actually, because you rescued us. Only Aarti was able to read Raj Tarangini by itself, like how it was in its form. We were all like all going crazy, but you don't know us.
No, Raj Tarangini is hard to read. This is a story. Gopi Krishna, grandfathers. This is Rakesh's grandfather's story.
Yes, absolutely. So it's 11, 12, 13. Is that it?
Okay, there'll be only 20 pages. If you
Oh,
go
sorry, 20 pages?
11 to end of 15 is 60 pages till
Oh, okay.
180.
So 15, 11 to 15 chapter. I like Subhaji. I think you should be reading this from now on. Okay. So see you next week. 15 chapters stuck. I
But
hope
yeah.
everyone who's traveling is able to read it. Huh?
Before we close, one small point from my side. You were talking about how he did whatever he did, but old Kashmir, people had no choices. You had to do what you had to do. You didn't think about choices. And the other thing is, my own mother got married when she was only 14 plus, and she had her first child when she was 15. She had me when she was 18. So she literally grew up with us, and she had 5 children by the time she was 25.
Wow.
My grandmother got married when she was 9.
But
Runyan,
that was only kind of a betrothal, right? Not a real marriage.
yes, they would
That's not
stay
real marriage. Yeah.
with
Then they would be once
their Runyan
after
betrothal.
puberty, etc. They would be brought together.
Yeah, they would be. They would
But
be.
my mother was only 15
But
or 14 plus. Sorry.
that is my dad's mama ji. He married a widow, so I
Okay.
think he was with this Samaj Sevak thing.
Oh,
Yeah, he
Samaj
married.
Smriti. Yeah, actually, the Shivani's dad will also mention he's like so Suvarya Kunkara so not Samiti, and I think people
I think
remember it because it's
Samiti,
for the people, right? If it's for the people, people remember it. And nobody knew about his Kundalini thing. He's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
I think that's
That's
more of a Western thing because of his book, or West
Hmm.
में, because in
नहीं
Kashmir,
नहीं, I'm saying
I think certainly Swami Lakshman Ju was much more famous.
no, but also that he kept it under the rugs and he never took followers and he never made a scene out of it. Instead, he put his energy into helping people. So nobody is asking
Right,
him whether he's enlightened or not.
right,
Like,
right. Absolutely.
so isn't that crazy? Like, just see the kind of a person he is really. I mean, seriously. Anyways, I feel like I don't want to name anybody, but I'm just saying he should have been I mean, he's written books for us to read, and I think he has pretty much said, and we have fortunate to have video interviews of his and biography and all that stuff. So I think whatever he could have told us, he has already said. So it's not that bad, I guess. All right, any last
Okay. Namaskar, everybody.
See you next week.
Namaskar.
Namaskar. Bye.
Bye.
Right. See you next week.
Yeah.
Bye.